Sit you up there. We're gonna try and do this in a way where I'm not constantly running out of breath. I'm already running out of breath. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney. Let's talk about all the books that I read in May. Now, I started out this year really strong. I was going like an average of like 10 books a month, it's a lot. I'm not trying to say that it's not. It is a lot of books. And for some reason, I was sure that I could keep that momentum up. And I'm here to say that sometimes momentum is meant to slow down. At least that's what I'm telling myself, because I only read 4 books this month. And I shouldn't even say only. That's not fair to me because I read 4 books. That's a lot of books. That's a lot of pages. I spent a lot of time reading, but it feels like I didn't read a lot. I read 4 books this month. I'm proud of myself for reading 4 books, and I am going to move past the fact that I didn't hit my goal this month and just be proud of the books that I did read, because I had a really great reading month, actually. I really enjoyed all the books. So we're gonna chat about the books that I read this month, and then we're gonna do my June TBR at the end. I just figured we might as well make it one video, talk about what I've read and what I'm excited to read, and just hang out for a little bit. I started this month off really strong by reading In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This is kind of a small town second chance romance between our 2 main characters, Noah and Shay. I don't want to give too much of this book away because there are some kind of secrets baked into the way that this book was written, and then the plot summary on the back that I don't want to give too much away because it ended up turning out to be such a great read. Shay gets dumped on her wedding day, and she ends up finding out shortly thereafter that she has kind of a farm waiting back for her, a tulip farm, I think, waiting back for her in like small town on the East Coast, somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere near water. So she ends up kind of taking a scary step into the unknown and moving back to that small town. I think it's not Stars Hollow, but it's something kind of similar, or like the farms are called something like that, like Little Star Farm and Tulips Are Us. I don't know. Something very cutesy and small town. And she runs into Noah, who she was best friends with in high school. And there's a little bit of maybe like unrequited love there, and a little bit of like held over hostile feelings since high school. So Shay shows up and she's like, Noah, I haven't seen you since high school. What is up, buddy? And Noah is like, screw you, dude. Don't talk to me. Have a nice life. And we quickly find out that Noah is the caretaker for his niece. I think she's like 6 or 7. She's a really cute book kid. Sometimes book kids are a little precocious. I would say In a Jam did it great. I think her name is Jenny the book kid. Overall, this book really surprised me. I thought it was going to be like a cutesy little small town romance, and it was that, but it also was like full of heart and very steamy. I would say that for the first time in a long time, this book made me blush just from the like tension that these 2 characters like felt together. So if you're looking for kind of like a small town romance with some heart, I would say definitely check out In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I had a really good time reading it. It was one of those books that I just couldn't put down. I did read it on my Kindle, but you can order it from Amazon, and the cover is really, really cute. It has little strawberries all over. My cats are just running amok. After I finished In a Jam, I moved on to the one and only Happy Place by Emily Henry. You're probably sick of hearing me talk about this book. I'm not sick of talking about it though, so we're gonna talk about it just a little bit more. Happy Place is another second chance romance. I didn't plan that, it's just how it happened. Happy Place is a second chance romance that covers Wynn and Harriet, who met in college through their friend group that is this found family for all of the members of that friend group. And they end up connecting by spending all this time together. You know how college is. You're kind of like in love with all your roommates and all your friends because that's how you spend all of your time with. Wynn and Harriet met through this friend group. They ended up falling in love, kind of sneaking around, and then they were together for 7 years. And then enter the start of this book when it is 5 months after the ending of their relationship. And these two have decided to keep their breakup a secret through their mutual grieving of the relationship. They've decided not to tell their friends, kind of like a not the right time situation. And then they end up at a beach house, a happy place, if you will, which is where they spend a lot of their time or have spent a lot of their summers together. And they go there for kind of one last summer. Harriet shows up thinking that she's going to be going by herself. And of course, Wynn shows up too. Because of the circumstances of this trip, they decide it's still not the right time to tell their friends they aren't together. So they fall into a fake dating situation. You do get a then and now timeline in this book where we're watching Wynn and Harriet fall in love. We're watching Harriet fall in love with her friend group. And then we're seeing now, modern day, what is happening at the beach house as these two try and navigate this like fake relationship. I really loved this book. I was a little bit nervous about it. If and when you read this book, if you relate to Wynn or if you relate to Harriet, I think you will feel very seen. I did end up giving this book 5 stars. If you watch the reading vlog, you know that I really didn't think that that was going to happen, but it's just the way Emily Henry writes that you can't knock it. It really makes you feel all the feelings. And I had a good time with this book and I'm really happy that I got to it this month. Moving on. Next, I read Credence by Penelope Douglas. And this was a little bit of a departure from Happy Place in that this is a very naughty book. High level of spice, high level of messed upness, high level of trauma, high level of inappropriate nature of all things involved in this book. And I loved it. I'm gonna give it 5 stars. This book has got to win my best book of the month, which feels absolutely insane to say. And I'm not trying to knock my lovely Emily Henry. She still got my heart, but this book totally took me by surprise. And this book is about Tiernan, and her parents have recently passed away. She's about to be 18. But her parents passed away, so she of course needs a guardian. Her parents left her to the care of her uncle who lives in rural Colorado. So she goes to Colorado. She meets her uncle, her step-uncle, for the first time. And then she meets her 2 male cousins for the first time. And then she goes and lives with them in rural Colorado. And I can't really say much more than that. This is a book for people over the age of 18. If you're curious about the content and don't know that you would want to read it, you could check content warnings. That is something that you might want to do. I might suggest. If not, if my vague description of what happens in this book intrigues you, you should check it out. I really liked it. I've talked to a couple of my friends and I fully spoiled what happens in this book. And while they weren't like, oh my God, that sounds amazing, they were like, I'm intrigued. Me and you both, girl. That is how I felt about this book. I was like, I'm gonna give it a try. And I did, and I really liked it. So Credence by Penelope Douglas. Don't knock it till you try it, or knock it, and don't yuck other people's yum. That's all. My final book of the month is the long-awaited, for me personally, because I've seen it everywhere, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, the start of the ACOTAR series, the star of my own personal Massiverse. And I'm happy to report that I had a good time reading this book. I did give this book 3 stars. I do think that 3 stars is a lower rating given how I feel now that I'm moving on to the second book, but 3 stars is how I felt when I finished it. So this is a fantasy book, a fantasy romance fantasy. It's one or the other. People have a distinction. It is a fantasy romance. This book is about Feyre, who is a human, and she lives with her very poor and destitute family on the human side of a human fairy wall. There's a continent, and in my head, I call it Perthian. That might be wrong, and if you are a fellow ACOTAR head, that's okay. I'm allowed to call it Perthian. It's the word I read in my head. That's how I call it. That's how I call it. That's what I call it. In Perthian, there is a wall that divides the humans and the fairies, and they're kept apart because the fairies will win any fight they have against the humans, and there was a war, now there's a treaty, blah, 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 blah. Feyre goes hunting to save her family because her sisters and her dad are just kind of like, that's your job, girl. I know that you're 19, but you must feed all of us. She goes into the woods, she kills a wolf, and then she is essentially held for retribution for the death of this wolf. And she is brought back to the fairy realm to stay with Tamlin, her new High Lord, who is her overseer, in the fairy court, essentially, because she killed this wolf. It's part of the treaty that she has to pay retribution, a life for a life. And so she goes to stay with Tamlin in the spring court, and we see how the rest of the story plays out. I would say that I think that this book was like an equal mix of Beauty and the Beast and Twilight. I'm really enjoying it. I'm reading the second one now, and I don't see myself putting it down anytime soon. I was shocked. I would say about this much of the book, I was like, yeah, I get it. It's a fun kind of romance situation, a little bit of a fantasy, trying to figure out maybe a little Hunger Games vibes. And then you get to about this section. And then a lot of stuff happens. The proverbial shit hits the fan. And when that happens, there's nothing more for me to do but keep reading the books. Now I have to read them all, and that's just the rules. Those are the 4 books that I read in May. Like I said, I was maybe expecting like 1 or 2 more, and we didn't get there. That's okay. Things come up. May's a busy month. What's a girl to do? With that being said, let's move right into what I'm hoping to read in the month of June. And because I set myself kind of a girthy TBR last month, I'm going to downsize. I'm going to be moderate, and I'm going to say, girl, you read 4 books in May. We're going to set a 4-book TBR, and then we can just match energy, okay? No need for this like lengthy TBR and feelings of disappointment, which is so silly. I recognize that it's so silly. We're gonna start with the 2 books that I'm already reading right now, and that is setting me up for success. So first, I am reading the second in the ACOTAR series. I'm reading A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I am just over 50% of the way into this book, and this just follows Feyre's continued journey. It's the second in a series. You're kind of spoiling some stuff if you start talking about it. So what I'm going to tell you is that Feyre, we know enough by the fact that the series is continued that we know that Feyre doesn't die. We're going to move on to A Court of Mist and Fury where she's still not dead yet. The second book that I'm hoping to finish this month, it's on my TBR, is Misery by Stephen King. While this book was released, I believe, in the 80s, you might never have heard of it or heard of the synopsis or watched the movie, anything like that. Let me give you a little snippet as to what this book is about. Paul Sheldon is an author, and he gets into a car crash, and when he wakes up, he is badly mangled, but he is being resuscitated by local crazy Annie Wilkes. And Annie Wilkes is reiterating at the very top of this story that she is indeed Paul's #1 fan. The book is following Paul being stuck in crazy Annie's house, and she has a little bit of an attitude and would prefer that Paul bend to her beck and call. That's Misery, and I'll catch you up on how I feel about it when I finish it, when hopefully it's on this video next month. I have Really Good, actually, by Monica Hasey. I am very excited to start this book. It seems kind of like a slice of life, telling about a girl's stream of consciousness, telling about a 29-year-old woman's kind of fumbling around right before the age of 30. I think that it just seems like a fun time and like a really quick summer read, maybe a little bit Samantha Irby-esque, which I feel like could be fun. This is the first page. There's not a paragraph break in sight. I mean, it opens with, "My marriage ended because I was cruel," or because I ate in bed. Relatable. That one's like really calling to me. So I feel like maybe I'm just like, I want to read about somebody my age. Maybe that's how I'm feeling. I don't know. Seems like a fun summer read. We're going to read it. We're going to see how it goes. And last but not least, I'm putting a Kindle exclusive on my list so that my little heart can go a little pitter patter, pitter patter. I'm going to be reading Be Still My Heart by Emily McIntyre and Sav R. Miller. This book I saw on a TikTok. What's a girl supposed to do with that? And it seems like a dark romantic suspense. And I think it'll just be a good time. I did read Hooked by Emily McIntyre a couple of months ago. And while it wasn't my favorite book, I liked the writing style. And so I think that this is gonna be just another quick and fun read. I'm trying to level set my expectations. It's June. I'm gonna wanna be outside. I'm gonna hang out with my friends. I don't know that I'm gonna be like wanting to pick up another 700-page book. I'm looking at you, Sarah J. Maas. And while I think that there's a time and a place, and the time and the place might be right after I finish A Court of Mist and Fury, I'm just leaving room to have a couple of fun reads this month. With that being said, I read 4 books this month. I liked every single one of them. I had a couple that surprised me. I had a couple that pulled through when I didn't think that they would. Overall, top marks for the month of May. And then I added 4 books to my TBR. Did I add 2 that I'm already currently reading? Yes. But I did add 2 that I haven't started reading yet, and I think that that's what counts. I hope that you were excited about reading this month. And if you're not, maybe pick up one of the books that I'm reading and we could talk about it together. I think it's going to be a great time, and I can't wait to see what we all get up to this month. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time. Bye!